Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast where we talk about real Canadian rugby. I'm Stu Hardy, joined by Jeff Robinson, and today we have a very, very special guest. He is the head coach of the Canadian women's 15s team, Kevin Rouet. Kevin, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. So when we have these kind of interviews, we always begin with the same questions. We want to know how it all started. So the first question to you, Kevin, is what got you started in rugby to begin with?
I had the cheating code because my dad is a rugby coach. He was president of a club in France. So I'm French, so I start as every French. I play soccer first, 5 to 10-year-old. And at 10-year-old, like slowly go to rugby, start to touch my first ball and just enjoy the game so much. So I start in France around 9, 10-year-old, and I never stopped since then. So.
Was the figure that was influential when you started playing rugby?
I have to say my dad, even if I said to him, it's not because of him that I start, but like my dad was literally like, he's a rugby coach, rugby players, rugby president. So definitely my dad was a big influence. And he coached me also when I was at younger age. He always followed me. So he did all the age with me, like as a coach. So I definitely is part of it. And even when I migrated to Canada in Quebec and I was still working and have a job, I proposed him because he was retired. I said, do you want to come coach the Club de Rugby Quebec? And he came for 2-3 summer just to enjoy and coach. So definitely my dad is a rugby person and just influenced like potentially my rugby.
Oh, that's really, really nice to hear. Okay, now this is going to be an interesting question. Who is a player that whenever they step onto the pitch or, are now retired and did step onto the pitch, you would just love to watch them play? And I'm not going to restrict this to any of the players that you're currently coaching. I don't want you to get in any trouble with them. So if they've retired, if they're a men's player or women's player, who do you just love to watch play?
I will go on the men's to not have, because women's, I don't want to go there because I don't want to have a favorite.
Good,
so
good choice, good choice.
Side, because if I start to say one women's players, everyone will say, why you didn't name me? So
yeah, exactly.
I will go on the men's side to be safe. Men's, I'm a very obvious person, but Antoine Dupont is the players that I love the most watch. He's unique. He has his own style, and he create his own style as a rugby player. Like if you play with him, the team is different. You have to even adapt your style as other players to play around Antoine Dupont. So I think it's very unique. And he came back from injuries. And my first mindset is like, oh, I need to watch Toulouse last week. You see what I mean? That was my first mindset. And I didn't watch Toulouse much recently. And I was like, oh, Antoine Dupont is coming back. Boom. I need to watch Toulouse. So definitely is so unique that I think like this is my favorite players. It used to be Michalak long time ago. Again, a couple of French names. Sam Michalak was a unique 10. Thinking. Finn Russell is a player that I love also because he has a creative mindset. Also, so a couple of you can see the type of players that I value is creative players. So it's kind of fun to see them.
You have experience playing age grades with Stade Francais and your hometown in Namur, France. Can you describe the prevalence of rugby in France and how it compares to Canadian rugby?
It's interesting because when I was starting to I play rugby in age grade and stuff like that. France was starting to inspire themselves and lost themselves and inspire themselves with English rugby because England was on top and France was below. And I think they lose their identity in some of that. So me, I was playing a lot of structure game even in France. When I was at those kind of age. So but rugby is a big sport. It's everywhere in France. It's everywhere in England. Canada missed that. Sadly, in Quebec, when you migrate, it's all about hockey, sometimes Canadian football. And I'm like, I miss this part of the rugby and I lost it a little bit. But overall, I find a chilling French community in the rugby Quebec community, I will say it's like 50% of French, 50% of Canadian, and that helped me to integrate myself in Quebec, still having the love of rugby and integrate myself. So I think it was a good rugby is very helpful to integrate yourself, but definitely I miss that when I'm in Canada because rugby is not a big sport and you always have to explain what it is, not what it is anymore, but you have to explain like how it's the best sport in the world. And I played a lot of sports in my life, but the rugby is so unique that you can't compare that to any sport. Like you have to attack, you have to defend, you have to do everything on the pitch, and it's a contact sport. You have to be resilient. So all of that, like I love the rugby, and I try to just like promote the game, even in Canada.
As another immigrant who came from Europe to Canada, I can tell you that having a rugby community is one of the best ways to get integrated with the Canadian lifestyle. Yeah. And so speaking of coming over to Canada, I mean, originally, because as you made a testament to, you had a quote unquote real job and you had gained your master's in engineering. Yeah. And then you decided to pursue a master's in project management at the University of Quebec. So just interesting in my half, how did that opportunity present itself and what were the factors that made you decide to take it?
I think sometimes life brings you somewhere that you don't expect. So I was doing my engineering school and I had to stop rugby a little bit because it took me so much time. You know, in Europe, the setup is not, I love Canada in some aspect because you can play rugby and be at university, where in France, it's either you pick your study or either you go to sport. And it's like the link in between those two words is not good. So I stopped to play rugby for the last 2 years of my engineering, like in France. Because I wanted to finish my degree and it took me too much time in life. So I stopped literally for 2 years to just play rugby. And at the end of that, they propose you to do another master and they say, oh, you can go to Sweden. I think my 3 choices were Sweden, Quebec, and I think it was Australia. And I ranked them. I think my first pick was Australia. My second one was Quebec and third Sweden. And I get Quebec. So I moved to Quebec. I did my exchange, believing that I will come back to France after that and just start my life. And finally, I start to work. I get this rugby community. I'm like, oh, I start to play rugby again. I slowly coach the women's because they were looking for a coach and blah, blah, blah. And all of that make me say, okay, I can stay another year and I can stay another year. And at the end, you just never leave and you stay. Slowly go to another year. And at the end, you're just there. 15 years later, you're still there.
15 years later.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you were in Quebec, you were playing with Club de Rugby de Quebec.
Yeah.
What positions did you mainly play? And then what was the driving factor for you to switch entirely to coaching?
What position did I play? That was your first question.
Yeah. And then what made you switch to coaching?
So when I was in France, I was a scrum half. When I moved to Stade Francais, there was like already 3 scrum half, and I was doing my engineering career. So I moved even as a 12 sometimes. So 9, 12 was a weird position. I arrived in Quebec, they were needed a 10, so I moved as a 10. You see what I mean? So I will say I play, and I even started as a number 8 when I was younger. So I will say 8, 9, 10, 12. That could be the landscape of position that I play. And slowly you just do, they need a coach in the Club de Rugby Quebec on the women's side, you do it. After that, you're like, this CEGEP need a coach, you do it. After that, you're like, potentially the provincial team on the senior side like need a coach, you do it. And slowly you just end up to have a job as an engineer during the day and you do so much rugby on the side during the evening. And in 2016, I was like tired of doing my job and I'm like, do I want to do that all my life or do I want to try to, again, I regret if I come back to the big stuff is like, I regret to not have tried to be a rugby professional player and focusing too much on my engineering study. So I was like, let's not give up again now. Potentially I could become a rugby coach. So in 2016, I said to my employee, I said, I'm leaving in 3 months, find a replacement. I'm going to just help him to be up to the page. He raised me 20% to believe I'm going to stay, but 3 months later I left. And I go across Canada. I go in the West. I just travel without much idea of what I was doing. And after that, I came back. I went to the Carabin, University of Carabin at Montreal on the men's side. They were looking for a coach. I say, okay, good. And I was between Quebec and Montreal. On Monday, I was coaching in Quebec. On Tuesday, I was coaching in Montreal. Wednesday, Quebec. I was doing those go and back like 300 kilometers every day. But I love that. It made me to meet people, and I tried. I say, if I fail, I fail. And everything, University Laval came in. They were like, the coach just left, get the job, start to be good with Laval. Sandro, were the head coach of the women, say, Kevin, do you want to be my defensive coach? I say, yes, I want. Invite me to camp and stuff like that. Slowly go with Canada. He get fired, again, get the job. So it's kind of like, those lucky moments of like, you try to go somewhere, you don't know where you go, but he ended up to be that. And I was not looking for anything. In 2016, I was looking to try to win my life. In Canada, where you have no idea how to win your life anyway in rugby, here it's kind of like random. You just try and just say, well, whatever, and you end up I get a bit of luck moment and timing, and after that you have to have success in what you do for sure to just go. But I think it's a mix of both.
All right, fantastic. So you mentioned coaching at the University of Laval and Rugby Quebec. Yeah. You also coached briefly for Stade Bordelais, I believe. Yeah. So obviously, so many coaching opportunities. Before you got the assistant job with Rugby Canada, with these different positions, what did each experience teach you, and how did they help you grow as a coach?
So first, that was mandatory for me to have 5-6 jobs at the same time to make a salary. So that's how you start to win rugby. So I was like going everywhere. Stade Bordelais, it was the COVID time. And I don't know if you remember about COVID in Canada. I will say sport and COVID was not, and rugby especially. So I was like, oh, I decided to just commit my life to rugby, but I can't do rugby anymore in Canada. And we were sending a lot of players in France, and England and France was keep playing rugby when we were still in a lockdown moment. So my decision was like, until it doesn't go back to normal to Canada, I'm going to move back to France. So I moved back to 6 months in France, and that's why I invest myself with the Stade Bordelais, because I wanted to enjoy coaching. If you commit to rugby, you want to coach rugby. You don't want to stay home and just wait. So it was maybe selfish, but I think it helped me to just, again, see, hey, I'm not as bad as a coach. I'm a good coach because I bring value to the Stade Bordelais. And all of this experience, you're like, you learn from others, but also you arrive and give you confidence of like, you try to create a team dynamic, work well, go well. You just like implement a new style, it go well. And like all of that help you to just trust yourself, even if a lot of time you're younger than everyone else around you. Because I was a young coach, but so that's what helped me a lot is like trust myself, be confident, learning from others also. But yeah, definitely build the confidence of the direction I'm going.
Yeah, I fully get that. I guess that also answers the question of when, COVID hit. What were you doing? Obviously, you decided to leave, head back to France. Obviously, I guess be closer to family and have this opportunity to present itself. But in the same way that COVID was such a monumental thing that changed everything, and we've spoken to like other players in interviews of how they were able to keep going, because I think that for a lot of players there's the question of like, oh, what do I do now if I can't play? What do I do to continue going? Obviously being in a coaching position is very different, so how did you develop the mindset to continue on and keep going when you have all these like lockdown restrictions in place?
I think it was a lot of creativity moment. At those times, it's a challenge. When you reflect, you're like, we don't want to do that again. But I think it's like the resiliency of the Canadian players. I was coaching at University Laval at those times also. So I was doing both Laval, and I went to Bordeaux during the winter. So I think it was good for us to be creative. It was hard mentally for the players, and you were more as a coach like a psychologist than a rugby coach in a lot of aspects. You were the one who bring them joy when we were using noodle to play rugby and stuff like that. You see what I mean? Because we couldn't touch each other, and we were like getting those 2 meters by those. Like it's all of that. Like now we laugh about those moments, but I think it was good for the girls to just, we didn't want to play rugby. We just wanted to be together, chat, and just like do some stuff. So I think it was great. On my side, I'm someone who's like, if I have a challenge, I always try to overcome. So my selfish moment was to go in France and to try to keep playing rugby and coaching rugby. I was also helping girls to go in France and England as those time as a coach, because some of them say, I don't want to stay home. I want to do something of my life. So all of that, like we were trying to just helping everyone to just, some of them say, I'm staying home, I'm doing nothing. Some of them say, no, I can't stay home, I need to do something. And I think you have to respect what people want. And I think that was a good learning experience for me, but I don't want to do that again, definitely.
Oh, yeah. For sure. It was hard for everyone. Yes.
Oh, yeah, exact. Like
Yeah.
I know it was hard for everyone. It's not more than, but like exact. But I don't want to do that in the. I feel that the sport is not welcome in those kind of like those kind of moments. Like there's job that I will say you stay active because the society needs you in some aspect, and there's like job like my job as a rugby coach. You're like, what am I doing here? Like in those kind of moments, and you don't feel you are useful, but at some points you can see you are useful with those players, with the you are important for them to help them to just overcome those challenge moments. So I think you have, everybody is like doing their job the way he has to do in those kind of moments.
You were, well, you joined as an assistant coach for Canada in 2019,
Mhm.
and then you were later appointed to Canada Women's head coach after Sandro Fiorino departed.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, what was going through your mind during this time? Like, what was your first impressions of the women's team, and just like, where did you think the program and you like needed to go?
So under Sandro, I was the defensive coach. So for sure, I love to be a defensive coach, but me, I prefer attack. But if you say to Kevin, if you say, Kevin, you come to the national team and the only job you can be is a forwards and defensive coach, I'll say, okay, I'll be helper as a forward coach and the defensive coach because I wanted to be part of that. So definitely not my go-to, but that's what you have to accept. And I grind a lot and it's just like make my study, learn. Like I was like, I'll be the best defensive coach that I can. But as soon as I get the head coach job, I move myself as an attack coach. And the way we run the national program, I think it's unique. I don't know other program who does that. I'm the only person who is full time as a coach, and a lot of coach rotate around me. So you can argue it's like not good for the consistency. You can argue like it's, but the value of that is like if you put a clear boundary to coaches, it's fun for the players because they have a new input, a new voice, a new thinking. Until like the boundary are clear, I think it's good. It's hard for the consistency, but I think we always work like that. So for example, me, I love attack, so I'm just running the attack. I'm running the attack. But if my lineout coach is missing for a week because they are not full-time people, I'm going to run the lineout defense. I'm going to run the lineout attack. So because I love that. Also, I love to learn from others. So it's kind of a very unique way to work. And when I joke with people around, they say, "How you would guys do that?" And I think the girls love it in some aspect because sometimes if you have the same forward coach for 4 years, you may like it or don't like it. You see what I mean? But if you have these guys sometimes and another guys, you may find a way to just enjoy your process into the stuff. So I think we ran the program very in a unique way, and I think that was the big change when we arrived. Like to just be creative, not thinking the same as everyone and trying to run a program differently. That was my first thinking. I said I'm not copy past what others do. I was trying to just run the program the way I see it could be the most efficient for Canada.
So, when other head coaches get appointed, it's usually in the few months following the previous World Cup. So you give them ample time to get their systems in place, get the players they want, and get ready to go. And if there hadn't been COVID, you would have had enough years to build to the next World Cup. Instead, you have, I think, about 8 months to not only get ready for the World Cup, but you also have the first 4-team edition of the Pacific 4 series as well, and then any warm-up games going for that. So that must have been fun. I guess when you have such limited time, how are you able to prepare especially for the biggest tournament in women's rugby?
But if we come back to the origin, like for sure, when I get 8 months, I think I wanted to make sure the girls still believe we can do it. You see what I mean? I wanted to reassure everyone, so I just reassure everyone. We know our preparation, what was in the plan was not good enough in terms of time together. So I know you know the story. Maybe you know the story. I don't know the story. So we chat with the leaders, and I said, "Is what France is doing for those like 6 months of preparation is what England they were spending like 50 days together, and on our schedule it was like 16 days together. So we decide to ask for the community to help us. So we did we call that soft centralization, where players were living in the community. We did that in Victoria. We did that in Halifax. Prior to camp, of like players was not mandatory to come, but I was like, come if you come. It was not paid. Nothing was paid. It was just like we call that soft centralization, where we asked to the community, and I think that was so unique. I think again, like if you watch our program, like you could never ask that to anyone else, and I think it helped us to still be efficient. Sadly, we lose in semifinal against England in a game that I think we could have win with more preparation, more time. But again, he helped us to shape the next 3 years after that to be more, because it was only a 3-year cycle, to be more accurate, to be more angry in some aspect. Sadly, again, we didn't deliver against England against England at the final. But like I think, the belief is very important. Canadian rugby, what I recognize with girls in Canada is like hard worker people, never complain, never complain. And I can see it when I coach in England or France, people are more like complaining people and stuff like that, where in Canada, it's hard worker. And that's what I love. And if they believe in what you do, they are going to follow you. And I think it's important. And also, I think that's the number one is belief. It seems to be silly to say that, but you have to convince them also in the direction you go. I'm French, so my background is French. First, I had to convince maybe 70% of the players with English thinker playing PWR that we won't play like that. You see what I mean? We won't play the same style that England is going to play, because if we want to beat England, we have to create our own way to play the game. It's hard at the beginning because people are going to say, why, like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, why we do that? I say, it's just different. It's not the same. It's different. And as soon as they get the belief that it could work, you show them the efficiency of something, they believe in that. And I think that's the big difference sometimes in success, making sure they believe. But also you have to prove that, because you have your own conviction, but you have to be able to explain it and convince others that's the right way to play the game. That's not easy.
I'll go. How were you able to determine the squads for like the 2022 World Cup and the 2025?
Well, I will say the depth was not big at those 2022. I think like you respect what Sandro did with the squad. I think Sandro was good at identify like athletic ability for players. So I think I based my judgment of what I saw as an assistant coach, and I didn't change much the squad himself. I changed the style, I changed stuff, but I didn't change the squad. For 2025, so I don't know. It's not we don't publicize that, but I'm the director of women's rugby now for the past 2 3 years. So it means I'm managing the 15 and the 7 program. It was the case under Jack, and it's the case under Josh. So we have also these like beautiful exchange between 15 and 7 programs since the 2022 World Cup with more fluid and help us to have our best players accessible at the right time for the Olympic and at the right time for the World Cup. So I think it's also a game changer for us to make sure we have access to a wider squad of players. So yeah, definitely. After that, the style of play that we play require, I will say, you have to be good at your job. So if you're a prop, scrum is very important, definitely. But I'm going to require a props to be as good as a 10 sometimes on open field. I'm joking with that, but we always praised about like being good rugby players in Canada, and that's something like education as a props can make a passes, can make an offload, even can make a no look pass if she's confident with her ability. So all of that, I'm definitely looking for good rugby players, and I think it's very very important, and confident rugby players in what they do. And I think you instigate that to people, and I won't say names, but I can see change of behavior for players that I started to coach 3 years ago and now, and I can tell you they were not good rugby players 3 years ago. But again, it depends of the coach. It's not if the coach say as soon as she miss a pass, you put a leash on them, or you're mad, or you won't go anywhere with those kind of style of play. You have to believe in what you do, and you have to also believe it's a slow building. You won't be right every time, and you have to slow build this direction.
That's an interesting philosophy to take. So we will get into talking more about the World Cups in a second, but before you went to New Zealand for the World Cup, you went to New Zealand for the Pacific Four Series. It originally started in 21, and it was just between the United States and Canada due to travel restrictions. 24 being 22 being the first time it had 4 teams, taking on Australia and the Black Ferns as well, and it's continued since. It's been on the calendar since 2021. How has this new tournament been benefit to the Canadian players and to you as a coach?
Playing New Zealand every year, it's a game changer because you after that you see them just as normal rugby players. I will say that properly, just your man in front of you, and the fact that we beat them before this World Cup and we draw them again, because before that, like Canada never win in 18. I think it was 17 or 18 times in a row that never win. So as soon as we win them one time, you just insulate in your mind that you can win them. So I think it's important to be confident going to the World Cup. So definitely playing New Zealand is important. That's the same with playing England. Sadly, we need to win against England during the next cycle to just like create a positive culture of like, yes, we can do it. So very, very important to play the top team. I like it. It's always a challenge, but we always face top team now, almost in our preparation. We don't play a lot of like lower team. It's always like strong team. Like even USA is the lowest team that we play, and even USA I think will be good. They have good rugby players also. They just need to be better collectively. But I I like that. I prefer to play top team than to have an easy game against lower team. You don't learn much from those games.
Uh, what has been your impression of the women's 15, sorry, the Pac 4 tournament so far? I think you kind of touched into that, but
But it's a good tournament because it's important to play games, and it's important to have like also just create a trophy that you are like every year you just fight for a trophy. So I think it's important. After that, you have to recognize, depend of the years, that the importance of the trophy. For example, this new year there will be Pac 4, but the goal of the Pac 4 will be to test new players. So are we going to be the most competitive team? No. Do we care? Yes, we always want to win a game, definitely. But I think it's bringing new players to this environment to make sure. I want to make sure as a coach, I build on the players we have, but I also open the door because we are 4 years from the next World Cup, and I open the door to new players. And again, it's easy to say that when you are second in the world, because you can make tests, you can try stuff, you're not stressed about like anything. I'm not stressed as a coach to be fired every day. You see what I mean? So I can do whatever I want, and that's what I love also with Rugby Canada is like I feel with this federation I have a lot of freedom in the way I can run a program and stuff like that. It's not the case everywhere. Um, so I think that's the idea. So Pac-4 is a great competition to have a trophy, but also we have to recognize every year this Pac-4 doesn't mean the same. The year before the World Cup, the Pac-4 before the World Cup was important. Those 2 years before the World Cup are very important. The 2 years after the World Cup, this Pac-4 is important, but not as big.
Mm. All right. And speaking of the World Cup, because we've been dancing around it a little bit, so in 2022, after the semi-final loss to England, both you and Captain Sophie de Goody spoke about how Canada needs more money and needs more resources in order to compete in the future. Now, do you believe that between then and now that call has been answered, or is it still in progress?
So, massive step forwards between 2022 and 25. The only concern is when we do a massive step forwards, other federation do a huge step forwards because women's game is growing, and our federation is our federation. It's a small federation. I try to reverse sometimes the thinking. I'm on closed door. I'm the one to advocate to have more money. Definitely, I'm always pushing for more because when I compare my budget to other top 10, it's frustrating every day. But also, I recognize two stuff that almost men's and women's are equally. Our budget is very similar. You see what I mean? And I think it's a unique. I don't know other federation who work like that. So I think we have to respect that also. And the other stuff also that some people forgot. Yes, we fundraised to go to the World Cup, but we didn't fundraise to go to the World Cup. We fundraised to win the World Cup. And I think this is very, very different of like people say, oh, did you see this team went to the final and fundraise? Yes, we fundraise. As every organization will have to just ask for money from private sponsorship and stuff like that. But sadly, those big private company doesn't exist or doesn't want to fund Rugby Canada. They prefer to fund other sport because it's Canada and it's like that. So yes, we have to go by smaller donors, smaller stuff. So it's kind of look like a fundraise like that. And I think we have to respect that. I definitely, so if I come back to what I want to say, yes, we make a massive step forward, but that's not enough. This is not enough. But I understand all of that. I'm frustrated. I want more, but I also understand that it can't go always like, yes, I would love to have an England budget of 20 millions, but it doesn't exist here. I won't have that.
How did automatically qualifying for the 2025 World Cup allow you to develop new tactics without the pressure of the qualification process?
Yeah, I think it's not even the qualification because I don't think no matter what we get the automatic qualification or not, I believe we would qualify for next World Cup. You see what I mean? I think you can't move to because even before we were like, okay, whatever, number 4, number 3. Now we move to number 2. That's great with consistency. That's very good. But Canada was always a strong country, like moving between number 3 and number 5 on the women's. You see what I mean? That was always our ranking. Now we take a step forwards to be number 2. That's great. So doesn't change for me, but having a 3-year cycle, like because it was COVID, so it's only 3 years compared to 6 months. It's more like learning from this World Cup and say, okay, we need to involve our style of play. We were not brave enough in a lot of aspects of our game. That's why we lost against England. Learning from those games and believing in the direction and just having a clear direction of the reassess after World Cup, making sure we take time and we take time to develop a style with our own style. And that was very important for me. And I think in some aspect, I know reading media and stuff like that, I succeed to bring another flavor to the game. I won't say it's like I don't invent anything, but I will say it's another way to think rugby, maybe different than like a classic big nation of rugby, and that's what I love with rugby. You can play the game the way you decide to play, and you don't have to copycat what other people do just because that's what they do. And I think that was refreshing for the girls to just play another brand of rugby, definitely.
So, besides the Pac 4, we've also had another competition that's come out since the end of the last World Cup, which is the WXV. And it's tiered differently, but Canada has always been in WXV1. I know it's now being changed to the WXV Global Series, but that's a to-be-seen enterprise. So WXV1 had its inaugural tournament in New Zealand, and it had the second tournament in Canada, focused in British Columbia. First of all, how was it to return to New Zealand following the World Cup and facing England again? But in general, what has been your impression of the tournament so far?
I like it because, again, WXV1 means, what does that mean? You play the top nation of the world. Everybody at the same place, you play the top nation. So I think it's a good synergy. I know they involve in terms of like for the financial market that is WXV won't be at the same place. We're going to move. So for example, like in September, October, we're going to play France in France, Scotland in Scotland, England in England, and England will come twice in Canada, just to make sure you have home and away game and not like everybody going to one country and you can't market those games. So I think he's also having a step forward to that. I think for me, again, come back to very, very important to play games with a lower pressure than a World Cup, but like playing the top nation is very important. Playing England was very important for us. So, and what I know is like now, no matter what of funding or not funding, I have the Pac 4 and I have the WXV series. So I know I have minimum 8 games. And after that is like extra funding will allow us to have more than 8 games every year, but that's the minimum standard that we have. And I think that's a game changer for us, because prior to that, it was always like bargaining with other nations to play games. And that now it's like set in stone. I know for the next 4 years is what I have. So I like it. It's a release a lot of stress for us.
Mm-hmm. Definitely understand that.
I guess that's very good for planning, obviously. Yes. Very good.
Yeah. And at some points also, I know, so the way we cheat the system is, as we are number 2 in the world, for example, like preparation to World Cup, we went to South Africa in our preparation to World Cup. Do I want as a coach to go to South Africa before going to the World Cup? No, I do not. Do I have to? Yes, I do, because South Africa has a better budget than us, so they pay for us they pay our trip. So we have 2 games. We have everything paid by South Africa Rugby because it's a bigger federation, and for them it's very attractive to have us as a number 2 in the world to have a preparation. That's the same with Ireland. That's the same with like every time you go somewhere. At the moment, it's great because it allows us to play more games, because on our name we get like invite Spain, even Spain invite us like with our like a B team to play them, and they pay for us to be there also. So it's unique. It's a unique way, but I think it worked well at the moment until we get results. I think people will always look to just try to just match up with us on extra game outside. So also we find a way to patch up the rest of the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good way to think.
Mm-hmm. All right. Something that's come up in interviews with both yourself and players in the squad is that you use the philosophy of Bruce Lee, and it's shown in the book Be Water, My Friend by his daughter Sharon Lee. So what first inspired you to read this book, and how has its messages on adaptability prevailed in both for your coaching and for the players as well?
First, I want to give it back to the person who bring it to the team. Jan Mulligan, who is my assistant coach, who is also the assistant coach of the 7. Bringing it on the presentation, and I liked it. And after that, I take it for my own and read it and just like bring it to it was just a defensive at the beginning. Like there was the defensive coach who make a presentation on it, and I took it to myself and I extend that to be water in general. It was just, and at the end it became a joke. Is like we are going to face challenging and we have to be water in a lot of aspect of our thing. Like you see what I mean? On field, off field, we know being a rugby players in Canada, it's not easy. It's not easy, and all of that matters. But it's also linked with our style of play. The way we play the game is very similar. It's very fluid. It's not prescribed. So there is a lot of there is a lot of like aspect like that that link it to it like deeply. But now it's just like yeah. And even last time, I won't say I moved it to I moved the be water to we water, so we achieved it. We are water now anywhere, just like as a joke. Again, everything come as a joke, and after that, you become more reality. You see what I mean? The way we process stuff, you never expect that when you just talk about something, it will lead you 3 years later about like a philosophy or whatever. But I think it's more the way after that you bring that to the players, and after that you use that, and I think that just it just it just helped the girls also to overcome challenge, I think, and it become a joke at the end. No, a joke is not a good word. It's not the word that I want to use, but that's the word that come in my mind. Not a joke, but like as a gimmick that you say a lot. Hey, it's fine. We don't have money. Be water, my friend. You see what I mean? Like we don't have that. Be water, my friend. Like it become a gimmick, like a joke at the end, and everybody like help you to just think of something else.
Kind of good at like how to allow them to like mentally focus almost like that. Yes.
Yeah, and it's important to focus on rugby. Like, it's a. I know we have a lot of distraction. I respect them so much because, for example, the girls who are in England, they are beside like England, Scottish, Welsh, Irish players. Like, we get paid. We get paid a lot, and they are beside them, and they hear them complaining every fucking day about their situation, and they don't. They are beside them. They don't complain. And when they explain what they have to go through as Canadian players, like the other girls are surprised every time. Even now, even they are still surprised what they have to do to just play and stuff like that. So I respect that so much. And I'm pushing them a lot as a coach. But also when we are off field, I understand the situation they are. I know their life. I think that's how you coach the new generation anyway. You have to know them a lot to be able to push them a lot. And I think because if they respect you, if they know you know them, if they know you care about them, you can ask them anything. You can push them very, very far. And that's I think that's a good way to coach. It's not easy every day because you have to be careful of like not overstepping and stuff like that. But I think knowing them is important to just be able to push them.
Yeah, I can fully understand that approach, and yeah, definitely get through. So let's move on to this year, and we're getting into the build-up for the Women's Rugby World Cup in England. You have the draw take place, I think it's like late 2024, and you find out you're going to be facing Fiji, Wales, and Scotland.
Yeah.
So, obviously, being one of the top teams in the draw, you last, so you know that you are facing these opponents, and on paper you're ranked high. You should be able to come out on top of the pool. But did you have to adjust any of your training to focus on like, okay, this is how we're going to beat Fiji, this is how we're going to beat Wales, and this is how we're going to beat Scotland? Was that all the same, or were there like little differences in the approach?
But the way we see Scotland and Wales and Ireland and England, they play differently, but it's kind of very similar approach of the game. So us playing Ireland before, it's a good link for us to play Scotland and Wales, and Ireland is a better version of Scotland. It was a better version of Scotland, and we'll see. We'll see on the future, but we knew coming to the World Cup, Ireland was one of them. Same playing South Africa, Fiji, very powerful, very dynamic, very unpredictable team. So playing South Africa before playing Fiji. Um, we know we could have faced USA, Australia. So USA and Australia even a style of play is very, very similar to each other. You could believe like Australia will be these unpredictable team, but they were not because they were coached by an English coach also. So it linked to all of that. Um, so I think our preparation was quite good. We played a lot of game because that was part of that. It was important for us to just play games to just grow into our confidence, um, especially because a couple of new players was coming to the team and they needed some game experience. We needed some belief. So I think it was a good preparation, definitely. After that, I know the way we play the game. It's the most simple way to play the game. We always look for best space. So we are looking at space before shape. So seems to be silly to say that, but like structure is only there when it's a slow ball, when you need to just, but if you're on top, if you play momentum, you have to play the space. So every phase is where is the best space and how to get there faster. That's how, so you're not looking shape, you're not connecting, you're looking in front of you and you're looking for the space and you have those micro connection. So this is how we see the game. So no matter what the defensive system, if you give us there, we go there. If you give us somewhere else, there is always so that's why you can see against some of the team we attack a lot around the breakdown because this is a very English team who is like full focus on folding, doesn't believe team are going to attack around the breakdown, so we do that. There is team potentially like Fiji who are less organized in their defensive system, so space is more outside. So it's all of those kind of thinking will help us, but we are definitely looking at always like how we are going to I use these words, so I'm going to say how we are going to abuse the opposition, how we are going to suffocate the opposition, how we are going to abuse on their weakness. And I think it's important to recognize that, and definitely playing fast to their weakness is hard for them to stop us after that.
Interesting. So building on from that, before even getting into the games itself, obviously you had two games against South Africa. You had the game against the USA in Ottawa, the largest attended women's individual rugby match in Canadian history. You go to Ireland, you play them there, and then 2 weeks later, you're in the first game of the pool stage. But just in general, what was the atmosphere and the experience of being at that World Cup in England? Because we've seen the statistics coming out. It's the most attended women's Rugby World Cup, most tickets sold. Obviously, being in Canada, we're only hearing like secondhand sources, but there'd be big stories from the BBC because it was shown on the BBC, which meant it was free for people to watch it. What was being there? What was your experience of the vibe, so to speak?
But I see a big step forwards between the World Cup in New Zealand and the World Cup in England in terms of organization. Like definitely massively in terms of media coverage, in terms of everything was great. Love the fact that it was in different city. We were moving week after week, like to a new place of England, change the scenery. Again, people knows there was a women's World Cup. That's the beauty. That's the beauty. You go on the streets, they know, and that's what I love. Sometimes that's what I miss. Sometimes in Canada, sadly, that people love rugby in the street. People know. When I start to believe people, it's when I'm not dressed as Rugby Canada and people start to recognize me. That's something I'm like, okay, I get it. It was weird for me because it doesn't happen every day. You see what I mean? But I can see that, I can feel that. So it's kind of that. Stadium was fun. We had a very good small community of Canadian fans who follow us also during the World Cup. Friends, extended friends, family, and stuff like that was very good. My parents was there. Like you see what I mean? It's kind of like the world tournament. Like it was a mix of like Canadian like hardcore Canadian fan around us. We opened our environment for them. It was harder semi-final and final because there was too much people, but our environment was fully open before arriving to semi-final and final because there was too much people. We have to be a little bit more restricted, but before that, we were like a very open environment, and I think it ended up to be a good World Cup in terms of organization by England and even the setup. Because last World Cup in New Zealand, that was still COVID. That was still the end of COVID. So, the community, all of that were missing. And I love this World Cup 10 times more in terms of like the organization and all of that than the New Zealand one. It was a unique experience, a very good experience.
How was just as a follow-up, how was the like overall like the atmosphere, especially for the semifinal and the final, like even for the players? Because like 80,000 people for a final, that just must have been such a great moment for the players. Like just the feel, like the build up. I'm talking about more like the feeling of the build up into that.
Yeah. It's interesting because again, it's easy to reflect post World Cup and say, is it emotionally that we don't deliver against England? I think it's bigger than that. And I won't go deep into that. It's not like emotionally, it's not the 80,000. I think our week of prep was the exact same one. No more pressure. We had a good preparation. Even arriving to the stadium, when you chat with players after, they didn't feel like overwhelmed by the moment. Same as me as a coach, I didn't feel like between 25,000 in semi-final and 80,000, there's people in the stand. You see, that's how you see that, and you focus on your game. But it was definitely fun when we walked in. There was a lot of people. I think it's unique. Like playing in front of 80,000 is great. The Prime Minister was like 5 meters behind me in the stand. I think this is what I value is like the media coverage in Canada was huge after the semi-final, and the Prime Minister showing up to a women's rugby game. I think that was unique for me. That was those kind of two markers that I'm like, and I don't do politics, but I mean like, that's what I need. Like I need to see, people care in Canada because people will always care about rugby in France, in England, but we need to have more people who care about the game in Canada. And seeing that like was very valuable for me. I liked it.
I think one of the biggest supporters to come out, and it's not the Tragically Hip, who did donate a T-shirt proceeds to Mission Win Rugby World Cup. It's not even the Prime Minister. It is Shania Twain. And
for me, no. For the players, yes.
No, but I think from that context is, and this may be coming from like British influence of the British Prime Minister will support the English, Welsh, or Scottish team. Ireland is a bit confusing because it's a unified Ireland instead of Northern or the Republic. But as you mentioned, this was the first time that a Canadian Prime Minister had come to be in person to see a women's Rugby World Cup game. Like, regardless of your politics, having that presence is significant. But I think having a cultural icon in the form of Shania Twain really brought a new subset of fans to pay attention to this game. And like you said, the media, I think probably following the quarterfinals really started to take notice of what was going on, which is fantastic. And so, following said quarterfinal, you had this match against the Black Ferns.
Semi-final Black Fern, quarterfinal Australia.
Yes. Following the quarterfinal against Australia, you're then like, right, next game, that is against the Black Ferns.
Yeah.
I can understand you saying, all right, this is a normal week of preparation. We've already beaten this team. We know what we need to do. You, in the pre-match build-up, dropped the hardest line, according to Rouge Rugby, that he's ever heard a women's coach say, which is, we're not bothered about the Black Ferns, or we're not bothered about New Zealand. Then the game happens, then the game concludes, and that statement is proven to be incredibly accurate. But on that match day, what was going through your mind before, during, and after that game?
I really like our performance against Australia in quarterfinal. I think that was. I think we could have. I was joking with the girls after and the staff, like we could have put them 80 points. I think that was for me. Everybody loved the New Zealand game, but I really loved the Australia game because Messi as Australia is not as. But I loved what I saw on the pitch, and I'm like, okay, oh, great game. And we let a couple of opportunity on the side, but like I was like, we literally destroy them for 80 minutes. Like literally, I was like, okay, build the confidence, like very, very strong performance. So we come to New Zealand, and again, it's always the same. Is like New Zealand style massively changed. Like they don't play the same as they used to play a couple of years ago. When you watch them play, you're like, I think we can do it. You see what I mean? And this is what you have to put in the brain of like the players is like check what we do and check what they can't do. So it's important that we do stuff that no other team can do. And sometimes you focus on what the opposition can do, but there's a lot of stuff that they can't do that we do. And I think it's important to reverse sometimes the thinking of like, hey, check how fast we play. They can't keep up with us. Check the game line, check all of that they used to be good. We are way better than them now. And I think it's important to recognize that, put the belief in the girls. They made the job games before. We will know it's going to be a tough game. And I was so surprised, not surprised. I was happily surprised that the first half go this way. I was like, okay. another one. And you're like, okay. And you're like, okay, great start again. So during the game, excited. I was, for sure, as a coach, stressing the second half in some aspect. Even we were always having a buffer, but it's New Zealand. You never know. They could score a back-to-back try, and you're like, fuck. Go back in the game in less than 2 minutes because you give them that. So you have to be careful with that. And after the game, I was like, I will say, the girls will say, I was emotionally neutral in some aspect because I know, and again, I was like the first one to making sure everybody like is happy, but calm and relax, because I think we show. It's interesting because people believe that we succeed our World Cup. Internally, we don't. We were number 2 in the world. So if you are finished number 2 at the World Cup, you didn't overachieve your goal. You just like you are who you are. You are second in the world. Great job. You are second in the world. You went to the final, but you didn't do the job finally. So it's a successful in terms of like I think style. We play an exciting way of playing the game, but in terms of final result, finally when it matters, those 80 minutes, we didn't make the last job. So emotionally neutral after the New Zealand game, but finally didn't show. It didn't help the girls potentially to be ready for the final. So there's a lot of reflection. I still reflect on that, on the preparation and stuff like that. Anyway, it's never black and white. You can't overanalyze a situation. There is multiple factors we could have go the right or wrong way, even during the games. That you need to be careful of overanalyzing the situation.
Yeah.
Just before I ask the next question, about which will be what the final, I just want to say, as someone from New Zealand, raised in Canada, I love that semi-final. I have to admit, I was talking to my Canadian family, my New Zealand family. They were asking me, "Were you shocked?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
I thought that was good, and especially the first half. That was an amazing rugby performance by you guys.
No, I know, and I received so much message. It was overwhelming at some points, but it was great to see that. Like, it's hard because people say, "Oh, that's the most amazing game of rugby I see in my life," and da da da. And I'm like, "Calm, you see, like it's never that amazing. It's okay. It was a great game of rugby in some aspect, a lot of aspect of this game." But I love the Australian game also. You see what I mean? That was always my first thinking. I was like, yeah, when I watch the Australian game, I'm also excited by this game. So, no, definitely I can feel the energy and the number of messages during the week of prep by random people that I haven't chat for 10 years. Anyone. I was like, that was crazy. I stopped my phone at some point because I'm like, it's too much for me. But it's positive. I'm joking when I say it's too much. I liked it in some aspect, but you have to be careful to not be overwhelmed with this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think from my personal perspective is having watched Canada for the entire year up to that point. I think obviously playing New Zealand in New Zealand and the try at the end that brought it to a tied game, and because I can obviously understand you would be quite frustrated of we were so good and then we let it slide, and that could have even been a loss if the conversion had connected. But throughout the World Cup, even including the quarterfinal against Australia, I never thought for an instant that Canada would panic or be on the back foot. They, they nilled Wales. They only conceded one try, I think, from Fiji and from Australia, and a couple from Scotland. One try was obviously called back because it was very illegal. But I think in the build-up to the New Zealand game, it's the aura that New Zealand has. These are the defending champions, 6 times winners as well, and it's that thing of if you count out any New Zealand rugby team even for a second, that's when they pounce on you and they immediately bring the momentum back to them and win the game. That's how they've been so good. But even when New Zealand scored 2 tries and were, I think, now back on 19 points, even then, Canada did not feel on the back foot. They did not feel like they were sliding or anything along those lines. And then, obviously, the penalty kick by Sophie de Goede just put away any minor concerns. And I think it is that mental aspect about it that has become so prevalent through this Canadian women's side, is that, as you mentioned, once you beat them in 2024, why can't we beat them again?
Yeah, and it's interesting because when we beat them, I don't believe we deserve to beat them. But when we draw them the year after, I believe we should have won this game. And you see what I mean also? And I think we were even, all of us, when we drew against them again, we beat them the year before, drew against them, everybody on the pitch were not happy with that. We were like, fuck, we missed an opportunity to win against them again. And I think it's still fire inside us when we come to the semi-final and just again, we won't fucked up. We're going to deliver against New Zealand. We're going to just win this game. And I think it was good to see that. And respect to the girls. When it was time to deliver, they delivered in semi-final, definitely. Definitely.
Okay, and now bringing it on to the final. Obviously, as you said, not the result you wanted. I think even as well, even if Canada had won by 15, even with the world ranking system, similar to after England lost to New Zealand in 22, England still remain world number 1, and even if Canada had won, they would have still remained in the world number 1, but obviously wouldn't have the title of world champions. Following that game, knowing that this is the start of the next cycle, it's going to be 4 years before you have this opportunity again. Some of the players hopefully will be there, but some won't. For some, this may even be the end of their career as a player. As a coach, how do you address that overwhelming negative mood of this was our goal and we didn't achieve it, and how do you pick yourself up and pick the team up following that?
So I think there's 2 sides of that. The first one is yes, we definitely didn't win the World Cup, and sadly we didn't win it, and we didn't play our best game in final. It was not a good game on our side, and again, I won't redo the game. But even not playing our best game. So first, scrum was not on our way. This is the first time for a long time the scrum was not going on our way. We didn't affect the rest of our game. It's a couple of line-out moments also, a couple of silly penalties, and you can't give that to England. But even with that, like a turnover that I still believe, I'm still like 1 meters away. We get the turnover, and I still believe it's illegal. A lot of all those moments didn't go your way, and even you don't play your best game. They have a yellow card, it's 26-13. You could score. You knocked on the ball at 3 meters from the line again. You do a lot of enforced error that. So even not playing your best game, you could have come back to the game and you don't. But you end up to have a May game like that, and you finish your adventure like that, where you will lead up to potentially a lot of good quality game. You see what I mean? Like very dominant performance where by the past we were winning games, but not that dominant against opposition. Like, Australia, we were dominant. Even New Zealand, we were dominant. So it's a little bit of frustration inside us. Like players are frustrated, staff are frustrated because we didn't show our best behavior when everyone is watching. So, and we are struggling, and I include the players into that. We were going the right direction. We are playing the game the way it means to be played and to win, but we didn't. So that's the frustration, and we need to be careful. We need to involve as a team. Definitely, we need to always involve. You can't be the same as you were the year before, because if not, you're behind. So you need to involve, but we need to still believe in the way we play and believe in the direction we go. And refine what has to be refined, find the right players to fit with the system also, making sure we integrate new players. It's all of that. So frustrated definitely by the last 80 minutes of our 4 years. Proud of, I will say, I'm still proud of what we achieved. I need to be proud of that. I still get frustrated. Like I'm frustrated inside me. I'm frustrated, but I know everybody told me to be proud of it, so I am. But yeah, I think a couple of players, if you chat with Sophie, she's as frustrated as me. So if you chat to a lot of like leaders and stuff like that, they are like, because we were going to win the World Cup. And I think we were not the only one to believe in it, because I think some players, some people who watch women's rugby could started to believe it before the World Cup. But we were like, yeah, convinced that we could do it. Sadly, we didn't. So that's how I see that at the moment. It's still there. I need another year to just accept it.
Looking forward, I would say this is not just specific to you or to Rugby Canada, but more like Canada as a whole. What do, like, I'll use the word we, even though it's more, yeah, Rugby Canada and you need to do to sustain and strengthen Canada's position in World Rugby in both 15s and the sevens game?
Well, if I'm going to elude the money, like the money aspect, because money will always be the key. For example, I will give you for this year, I have to have a minimum year. Like I'm not having like a massive years with a lot of games, a lot of camp and stuff like that. So we definitely lose it because money is money, and we don't have the chance to have like so much money. So we have to be limited with what we do. So I told you those 8 games exist. But for example, when we are going to go to Pack 4, I won't see the players before the March 30, and I'm going to play April 6. So since World Cup, I won't see the players at all. And I'm going to see the players 1 week before playing our first game. So all of that impact our immediate result in Pack 4. After that, we find a way, making sure players are in good setup, whatever they stay in 7, whatever they go in 15 in Europe and stuff like that. On the other side, I'm always pushing for moving the game of rugby in Canada in the right direction. So as I will try to go fast on that, but I think it's important. I coach university, I coach club, I coach high school, I'm part of the Canadian system. I've been there for 15 years. I consider myself as a good immigrant in some aspect, and I respect the way we university is an amazing product. Like it's amazing, creates so many athletes, and we have to care about it. It's important. Sadly, it's a product who is like good for U23. So before it was okay. to go to university to international rugby. It's not okay anymore. So you can say, okay, let's use club. But if you make the math, in Canada, there is 64 clubs who could argue they are in first division. So there is like in Manitoba, whatever. Like, you see what I mean? 64 club could say, I'm at the top of what I can do. 64 club. England has 8 club in first division. Sorry, 9 club in first division. France has 10 club in first division. We have 64 club in first division. I love club. I'm a club coach. I coached the club of Quebec for 10 years. But it will never be able to achieve the same goal as an England club. So we need to more regionalize. So for example, I force Quebec and Ontario to work together. So they run a league with Quebec, Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto. Great job, guys. Boom, we do a league. Alberta, I say, guys, run Alberta North versus South. Do that. 4 games during February, March. I know it's winter. Run those games. I'm going to be there. BC, do a BC Gold, BC Blue game. Atlantic, Nova Scotia, mainly for the women's a lot. Atlantic, come in Quebec, play the Montreal team, play the Ottawa team on your own. And that's it. You have 9 regional teams and you cover 70-80% of your population. But we need to grow that, okay? Because we need to be careful that all our players go abroad, because I respect university, I respect the club, but we will never be able to catch up against England, against France, if we start to believe we could use club as our high performance rugby. And I know people come back to me say, why we don't do CRC in the senior? I'm like, yeah, CRC is great. It's 1 week, 5 games in 1 week, great. And after that, what they do for the rest of their year. And this is, you won't really attract, it's good for kids. It's good. U18 CRC is amazing. U19 CRC, I love that. U20 senior, we need to give them a product when they could play game after game after game on a weekly basis to keep learning from it, coming back. So I'm a big advocate for that. I know it's a big topic in Canada, and I'm trying to influence that and be clear of like why club can't be the high performance. It's a very simple reason for that. Why university can't be also high performance anymore, because you can play 5 years and that's it. You play 5 years and you're saying you graduate and it's over. So we need to push for something else. MLR was there for the men's. Potentially, you see what I mean? That was more north. Potentially there will be something bigger, but at the moment, until it doesn't exist, until someone arrive and put millions and say, I'm going to create the new Canadian National League or whatever, you still need to regionalize and force those federations to work with each other. So this is a lot of work that you have to do as a head coach of the Canadian team that you shouldn't do if you were an English coach or a French coach or any other coach. So that's the fun part of the job, trying to convince people. That's it. That was my speech. My speech of saying how things needs to change.
All right. Okay, we'll keep it a bit more personal when looking ahead now.
I'm sorry.
So earlier this year, it was announced your contract has been extended as head coach to 2027. Following the Women's World Cup final, you said you look forward to being here in 4 years' time, hopefully lifting the trophy in this outing. So what do you want to ensure that Canada can do to lift the cup in Australia?
But so making sure. So first, as I said, like in a year of preparation, you are in fully control of those players potentially for 3 months. So you have to make sure that on those 9 months, they are in a great setup to just keep developing themselves. So whatever it's in England, whatever it's in Canada, whatever it's in France, whatever it's in New Zealand, making sure we have a unique way to develop players with like very individualized. Like everybody is our own like here, like, and making sure people thrive in those kind of environment. Making sure we keep looking to bring new players in the environment. And I know as a coach, you need to be careful because you can be biased because you know players that you have coached for 3 years. There's a new players coming in and you have to know where they are and just making sure you let the new players coming in grow in the environment, because in 4 years, the landscape will change. I make a joke with a lot of people. We lack of props in Canada. It's not a joke. I think Seven is fun in some aspect because he allows us to discover a lot of good winger, a lot of good like center back row. But sometimes like I miss those props. Where are they? You see what I mean? We need to keep developing those, like, because scrum is important. You can see it in final, and we need to develop the right players. We need to make sure every body shape is accepted in rugby, and we need to just encourage more, like, those girls to keep playing rugby when they are young and not being like distracted by other sport, and keep playing the game, because sadly those props won't come from the seven. So I know in some area of Canada they only play seven. Those bigger body shape are not welcome in the seven game. I will say that, but we need them in the 15 game. So how we make sure we have more props coming into the system, more hooker coming into the system, because I don't know why in Canada, but everybody want to play back row. So we have a lot of back row. That's amazing. But we need props, we need hooker, and yeah, that's why I'm joking with that. But like, it's crazy. Back row is amazing. My depth chart in back row is great, guys. I can just run a program for the next 10 years. So all good.
We'll keep it more with you for the next question personally, but you have joined Saracens, and congratulations to that. As an assistant coach, what has your experience been so far in the PWR?
So as I said before, I've been in PWR a couple of times now for my for the next 4 years visiting clubs. So I know almost every setup in PWR, because I was visiting club to just again promote the Canadian players. You have to go face to face. You want to push players to go there. So last year even I stayed 1 month with Saracens, watching them as an external view. The director of rugby of Saracens is my assistant coach with the Canadian team. So Alex Osterberg, who is the head coach of Saracens, is my assistant coach with Canada, and I become his assistant coach with Saracens. That's the link in between each other. So I'm not coming in an environment where I don't know. There's multiple view on that. My view is like, I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to enjoy myself after the World Cup. You know, as an international rugby coach, sometimes you could isolate yourself, and coaching every weekend, trying to beat the opposition every weekend, reassess. I think I missed that a little bit. So on a personal standpoint of view, I needed that. And also my goal is I'm having fun with the England girls to convince them to play otherwise. And I think it's a good spirit for me to just, and they love that. If you watch to all the England girls who play for England and now play for Saracens, they all love the way we go with the team. I have very good feedback on that. So I think it was also convince myself that I can coach new people and just like challenge myself to convince new people. So it's kind of that. Love the PWR. Like, it's the best women's setup so far. So you play game every week. Weather is okay so far, so I'm fine. I'm happy here.
Yeah, it's not freezing rain at the moment, but give it time. Yeah. For the next couple of years as head coach, you're going to be going up against some familiar opposition, such as the United States and France. But you're going to be seeing some familiar faces as well, because Jack and Raleigh has been appointed as the head coach for the women's 15s team, and Francois Ratier has been appointed as the head coach for the French women's 15s team. So a lot of Canadian experience coming into these national teams. So the question is, do you have any secret tricks up your sleeve that you're going to surprise Jack and Raleigh with in the Pac 4 series coming up next year?
No, congrats to him, by the way. He called me to tell me. So it was, I think it's good for Canadian rugby in some aspect to just say, hey guys, we do stuff good, like in a good way. So everybody want to be us. So I think it's great in some aspect. Yes, I think, I know Jack for a long time. So I think he will have to find his own way to see the game on the 15 also, to because he came back from, he left the 15 to go to the 7 more and come back to university. So also is like finding himself to the game, 4 years, trying to understand the landscape of USA is as hard, even harder than Canada sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I know he has a job to do. Francois has been coaching in Bordeaux now for the past 2 years. So I kind of know if I'm very transparent with you, it's people that I know, and I prefer to coach against people that I know than people that I don't know, because I'm not so very surprised with how they coach the team. So this is the same. They just announced the new Scotland coach, with Shone, who is the USA coach, now moved to the Scotland job. So it's kind of weird in some aspect that it's a recycle type of stuff. But no, I'm not more excited. I'm just happy for them to get a job in international rugby, and just it's going to be a fun matchup against USA and against France. Yes.
Going to be any little side bets there?
Oh, we're going to win. No, we're going to. But for me, playing against France is always special. By the way, I'm still French. Even on the men's side, I'm still my heart on the men's side is, yes, when I watch Canada, France-Canada doesn't exist on the men's side, so I'm fine. I'm never turning. You see what I mean? At the moment, it doesn't exist, so I'm safe. But on the men's side, I'm for France. And on the women's side, I'm definitely Canadian, because I know those girls too much. And I've coached them for a long, long time now. Even Justine Peltier, I coach her now for 10, 12 years. So I'm Canadian. I'm Canadian in a lot of the women's. But on the men's, I'm still a big fan of France.
All right, and I guess this will be the final question we ask, is looking back on your career so far and looking ahead to what is yet to come, what do you hope your legacy as a rugby coach will be?
Wow, did you write that? I didn't. Okay, I didn't read.
Yeah,
this
these are by my hands. No chat GBT here.
Yeah. Okay, it's crazy to say that, but I don't care much in some aspect. I even think that maybe after the next cycle, I won't be a rugby coach anymore. You see what I mean? I'm more someone who loves projects in life. So I jumped to a small project with Saracens after a World Cup. I still have my 4 years with Canada, and I will try to map my life around that. So I'm not thinking much of the legacy of everything, of the big pictures. I'm thinking project after project, because that's what excites me. And when I'm going to reflect later, it's because I'm still young, so it's kind of weird to sometimes talk about legacy. I have no idea where I'm going to be. I think I know where I'm going to be in the next 4 years. Kind of, you never know. You could be fired. You could just, whatever could happen to you. But no, I don't think much about those kind of stuff. But I know as if I involve so much as a coach that I trust myself now of the direction I go. I don't listen to much other people who say you can't do that. And that's what that's what I say to other coaches. If you believe this is the way you want to play the game, trust yourself, do it. Try to see if it works, reassess, come back. And I think there is multiple ways to play the game of rugby. And I think that's what I want to just say to people who come to coaching or players. I say that at the youth sport banquet. I say, don't listen to your coach. He's not always right. I shouldn't say that in front of all the coaches. But, be careful when a coach said oh, it's like that, because it's not always like that. It's rugby is gray. It's not black and white. So we have to be careful sometimes to be too black and white with our thinking and stuff like that. The rugby is involving. We don't coach the same way as we coaching 5 years ago. So I think I want to be this coach who always think how to move forward, and I want to be respected by my players. I think it's important for me that the players love the way we play the game. It's almost equal important at the moment. The girls love to play for Canada. They loved it. And I'm not stressed to tell you guys. I can tell you they love to play for our team. And I think every time they come back to me, say, Kevin, I'm bored when I play for another team. I'm bored. So when they go to PWR, they are bored. When they go to Exeter, when they go to Bristol, it's boring, because we play a game which is also fun. It's not always the most efficient way. I think it's quite efficient, but it's also fun to play it. And I think that's what I want them to remember when they were playing for Canada. It was a fun way to play the game and an efficient way to play the game also.
And that is a fantastic answer to end this interview. And to those of you watching and listening, if you enjoyed this interview and would like to check out more, you can do so on our website, therougerugby.ca. You can also find our podcast on Spotify and on YouTube, and we're across social media, including Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky, all at The Rouge Rugby. Kevin, obviously there's a weird TV schedule for the PWR in the UK, but for us Canadians, how can we watch Saracens women play their games in the PWR?
You can watch them on YouTube on the PWR channel. And if you have a VPN, you could watch them on BBC or TNT with UK channel. But like YouTube PWR, it's the best way to watch that, definitely.
You heard it here, folks. Jeff, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on X at WPRugbyJeff.
And you can find me across social media at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. And this is where we're going to end this episode. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. Jeff, thank you for doing this interview with me. And thank you all for another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. This is our final episode for 2025, so we're wishing you all a very happy holidays. And if it's difficult to be happy at this time, well, at the very least, we hope it's peaceful. And we hope you can join us again next time.